you to this exceptional event organized by Office of Research, Innovation and Commercialization. I am Zarish Sahra and I am delighted to be your host for today's session. This session centers around a topic of immense importance and relevance in today's complex world: conflict resolution, heal and hope of turning conflicts into opportunities. As we live in a world where conflicts, whether on global or international scale, are a part of our everyday life. Learning how to manage and resolve these conflicts is not only valuable but also essential for our personal and professional growth. Before introducing our guest speaker, firstly, I would like to invite Vice President Academics Dr. Altaf Mukati to please come to the stage for his opening remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On behalf of SZABIST University and its management, I am pleased to welcome Professor Dr. Huma Bakai, Rector, Millennium Institute of Technology and Entrepreneurship. Thanks to Madam President and Vice President Madam Nasreen and Vice President Mr. Imtiaz Qazi Saab. I'm also thankful to the Auric, Dr. Bilal and his team to organize this very valuable session on conflict resolution. Well, I understand conflict resolution is a process of addressing and resolving disagreements or disputes between individuals, groups, or organizations in a constructive and peaceful manner. It involves several steps such as an identification of the conflict, communication, negotiation, mediation, problem solving, and finally agreement. These are the steps. I understand that this is the need of today's very volatile society, and I consider it as a great service to society. I hope the lecture to be given by Professor Bakai will enlighten us of her great experience in this area of work, and I'm sure the students sitting here would definitely be benefited by her lecture. So thank you very much.
Allow me to introduce our distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. Homa Bakai. Dr. Homa is a highly respectable figure in academics and international relations sphere. She is currently holding a prestigious position of Rector at Millennium Institute of Technology and Entrepreneurship. Her academic journey has been truly remarkable. She previously served as Associate Professor and Social Sciences and Liberal Arts as the Associate Dean of Faculty of Business Administration at IBA. Dr. Huma Bakai, your insights and expertise are eagerly awaited, and we are honored to have you here with us. Please join us on stage.
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and I'm both honored and humbled to be here speaking to very esteemed faculty and of course Madam Shanaz Wazir Ali, whom I've always looked up to and who has been a bit of a mentor for me also, because she's always been a phone call away, has always supported me. There are a lot of other faces in the audience that I know. They're friends. Suri is there, many others are there. And SZABIST is almost like coming home, you know, because I've been coming here frequently. You've always been kind to invite me. So there was no way I was going to say no to this opportunity. And I thought I will talk about conflict, because we don't realize as to what it does to us as individuals and how much energy it saps from us. And more importantly, in terms of percentage, how much time an average manager anywhere spends on resolving organizational conflicts. And if we translate it into economic terms, there was a study that was done in the United States, and it said that it perhaps runs into trillions of dollars, actually. And they actually then came forward. Mukati Sahib just spoke about mediation in his introductory remarks. They put in place institutionalized mediation efforts settling outside the court, so that the time and the money that was spent in conflict resolution through courts should be minimized. So the whole understanding of what conflict does to us as an entity, what it does to our homes, and what it does to our organizations is critically important. The session today is slightly different from the kind of sessions or lectures that you've had, because I make it interactive, and I hope that you take something away from this and use it in your daily life, more so for my students than anybody else. Largely, you know, if we draw a line and we would say to the right is conflict is good, to the left conflict is bad, how would I see the division in this room? How many of you do think conflict is bad? Okay, fair. Conflict is bad. It's negative energy. It impedes a lot of progress. That's one way of. How many of you think conflict is good? Okay, I agree with all of you. Conflict is good. So I have another example for you. All of you must have done fasting sometime in your life. If not every Ramzan, you fast. And you get off early from work, yes? And when you're going home, what is happening on the streets? Yes? What's happening on the streets? Chaos. I mean, there's a lot of conflict. Even we drive on those streets every day, but that day, we are ready to get out of the car and get into a fist fight. So what essentially changes in Ramzan is our conflict behavior, right? Our response to conflict changes. Our conflict behavior changes. The issues are the same. We don't trade with India, and we would love to trade with China, although the trade with China has completely destroyed at least 4 or 5 local industries, which perhaps include our stationery, our toys, our shoes, plastics. These are industries that completely collapsed because of the low-cost Chinese influx, goods of Chinese origin. But we don't trade with India, because our conflict behavior, and I'm going to introduce another term, our conflict baggage with the two countries are slightly different. So essentially, when we say that there is conflict and the other person is doing something, actually you can control that conflict if your conflict behavior is such that you are in what I call a responsive mood and not a reactive mood. But this is something that is learned. It's a learned behavior. It does not come naturally to most of us. Most of us would like to react to a situation. And imagine the high of saying, "Aisi sunaya ke samajh aa gaya usko," right? So when I do my conflict trainings at the workplace, for workplace or for the corporate, I always say that when you leave your boss office and you're really angry, so go to your desk and write that very nasty email, but don't press the send button. Press it the next morning. So when you come back and read it the next morning, there are at least 80% chances that you will rephrase it. And that rephrasing is going to help you mold your behavior, allow you to reflect. So the 3 R's are do not react, respond, and reflect. And interestingly, I have a very small cartoon video for you to look at, and let's see what you get out of it. So could we run that? That's the first video in the presentation that I had. Is somebody looking after it? Please, thank you. Very small video, quick, cartoons, fun, more for the students, but they're lessons for everyone. So it's called Carrot Crazy. The video is Carrot Crazy. Says a lot, right? But that is a situation that we are in every day. And switch it off, thank you. This video is available on the media very easily. But essentially, it tells you something we do every day in our lives. It also talks about brand wars. It also talks about toxic competition. It also tells you about blue water strategy. There was not just one rabbit in the field. There are many other rabbits. There are red water strategies and there are blue water strategies. But we sometimes get sucked into this toxic competition and we think that's the only thing left. And the worst part is that somebody else is going to be the beneficiary of this conflict. So those are just critical things that you need to keep in mind. And I've started using this video in my trainings or my talks, largely because I think it is more impactful than all the talking that I do. My slides, please. So this is essentially defining conflict. Conflict is everywhere in our lives. When you step out of the house and you go back home and in the home, it is everywhere. It is your conflict behavior that is going to determine your peace of mind. And another very critical thing that we usually don't talk about in terms of conflict, and of course the cost of conflict is something that I'm going to come to in a minute, is that people who learn to respond positively to conflict, where's this opportunity and heal dimension? The opportunity and the heal dimension is the ability to showcase your vulnerability. You see, every conflict, every angry outburst that you face, perhaps in this environment, from a fellow student, a student to the faculty, a staff to the faculty, faculty to the top management, the staff and the academia conflicts that you have. And this has taken me a very long time to come to this point of understanding every outburst is an SOS. So a very important component of handling conflict is the ability to listen. And we do not listen. We listen to attack. Look at all these meetings. Imagine a meeting between resource, finance, and perhaps resource allocation. So finance is not ready to listen to the resource allocation. They have come back with this preconceived mindset that paise nahi dene hain. Yes? So they are not listening to what this expense is going to do for the institution. How will it allow perhaps to build the brand? How it is not an expense but an investment. So these conversations talk about also exposing yourself. It is to start with a yes, then to start with a no. And then, starting with a yes is an art. The yes means nothing. Somebody is talking, you keep nodding your head and you're saying yes. You are not agreeing to anything. You are just giving somebody a very empathetic learning. That is what you're doing. And that is critically important as a tool of conflict resolution. People who have mastered the art of listening are already on top of the conflict. And also it allows the other person to vent. Vent is the biggest need for conflict resolution. We do not allow people to vent. And also the ability to compartmentalize the person huma bakai, from the job. So I have a job, I head an institution, and I'm a person who's huma bakai. So if somebody comes and vents, it's not an attack on me, it's an attack on the work culture, it is attack on how he's been treated, it is attack on the way the communication mechanisms work within the institution, or it is about a toxic environment. It is not an attack on me. The minute you master the act of separating the person from the problem, and it is critically important, to separate the person from the problem, you immediately distance yourself from the equation. When you're able to distance yourself from the equation, you have the ability to respond objectively. The biggest problem in conflict is our lack of ability to respond objectively. What is happening in Israel and Gaza, US is incapable of responding objectively. for whatever be the reason. So the ability to learn to respond objectively, and also the ability to learn that my 6 is your 9. You see, it's very simple. It's very simple. Huh? So what I see as a 6, you see as a 9. And if I am able to comprehend the fact that you are looking at a 9, and I perhaps have to turn around and stand with you, or make you come and stand by my side to see that I see a 6, or you see a 9. Anyway, so I'm not going to read it out. I just put it out there. Can we avoid conflict? Should we avoid conflict? The answer is this. This is conflict in the workplace. And how is it hurting us? By the way, conflict, if not resolved, is a hurting construct. It hurts people. It drains you emotionally. It brings down your productivity. It makes you invest, turns your positive energy into negative energy. And these are not just words, these are proven statistically across. So seeking, the people who actually seek conflict, I call them the red personalities. You know, they will actually go out and seek conflict because they thrive in confrontational situations. Some of you are smiling, you probably know people who do that. So I'm going to narrate a very interesting example. I've spent a very long time at the Institute of Business Administration, IBAs, some very critical years of my life, something like 16, 17 years. So at IBA, when Dr. Ishrat became a part of the construct, he said, we are going to give everybody a laptop. Every faculty member will be given a laptop at the cost of the institution so that they can work from home and they have flexibility of working hours. So, and we actually created a paradigm that if you were submitting everything, IBA, even today, there is, for faculty, there is no time in, no time out. So as long as you're doing your work and you're taking your classes, we don't count your hours. This is, I know it's not possible in private entities, but this is, and to make sure that work happened on time, Dr. Ishrat introduced this. I was at the time Associate Dean, and I thought there can be nothing wrong with this. Nobody can find a fault with this. You know, this is perfect. But because I was to operationalize this, so मैंने उनसे कहा कि जी जो faculty आके लेके जाए ना laptop free बांट रहे थे, खरीदे थे कोई हमने 300-350 laptops, वो नाम लिखवा देवे. You know, write your name that you've collected your laptop. So I was doing it very happy. I thought there was a lot of positive energy in the faculty. We'll write thank you notes to the director and all of that. I was making videos, you know, people to put on the social media. We've done this. I went into the faculty lounge and there was this person who said, "Ye kya tarika hai? Silai machine ki tarah laptops baant rahe hain." And I was like, where did I go wrong? What happened? What have I done? So these are these people who seek conflict. And they will always be there. So my favorite rule is the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is that you cannot have 100% conversion. Trust me. If you have 20% people who are on your side, who like what you're doing, you've aced it. You are on the top of your game. By the way, faculty, this is also your classroom. If you have 80% attentive students, you have aced the paradigm of teaching. So, I mean, I love this 80-20 rules because it allows me to fail 20%. We should all be allowed to fail 20%, you know? It's perfectly okay. And like I always say, my favorite sentence is that good is great. Why do I have to be the best? If I am good, I am amazing. And by the way, for the students sitting here, we did a survey with the industry. And they said we are actually looking at students who have a decent GPA, but they participate in extracurricular activities. So a huge hand to those who've come to listen to this lecture, because this is going to help you. And I mean it. I say this to my students all the time. The latest trends coming out from MIT and elsewhere is that university teaching, exclusively university teaching, is only 30% classroom. 70% is what happens outside the classroom. The societies that you're part of, other curricular activities that you participate in, the interactions, the networking that you do is what makes your university experience good enough for you to take you to the society and make it work for you. So just a word on that. Coming back to now, conflict in the house, it's going on vacation in 2 days. How many of you have seen people who are on their exit time or who are going to go on a leave who turn off their switch? I meet them all the time. So I'm actually, this notice period, I'm really turning against this notice period now. Because in notice period, I have a resource who doesn't want to work, who doesn't want to listen. He is on the 3 months wazifa. So I want to end that wazifa. I want to have immediate exits and have somebody come in who actually wants to work. So don't hold an important meeting, somebody is going on a vacation. Don't do that. Or is on, so depressed about criticism. He's done badly, he comes to the meeting, knows that he will be pointed at. This is a depressed person who has entered a meeting in a very defensive mode. He is expecting that fingers will be pointed at him. Don't give him the luxury to put a wet blanket on your meeting. Don't engage with him in a group. Engage with him individually or privately. Because, you see, if what allows you to ace a situation is to take away predictability from it. That is the trick. So I'm going to tell you a very interesting example, another one that I had, you see. So I'm sorry my examples are going to be with IBA because for MITE I've only been 1.5 years. So most of my examples are from there. So we introduced this online registration at IBA, right? And we said, KG, आप online registration करेंगे और IBA has become digital, This is 5-6 years ago. Admission का season था, हमने registration launch कर दी. 1 घंटे के अंदर everything collapsed. Everything collapsed. और students का रोला बाहर, phones और नाराजगी और threat और media और समझ नहीं आ रहा हम क्या करें. फिर डॉक्टर इशरत ने मीटिंग कॉल की कि इसको क्या करना है. उस वक्त मैं डायरेक्टर कम्युनिकेशंस थी. मुझे भी बुलाया. मैं आई एम एक्चुअली स्टैंडिंग आउट एंड आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग कि मेरा झड़ाई होगी ना. डॉक्टर इशरत इज वेरी टफ. मैं कहा कि मुझे क्यों बुलाया, मैं डायरेक्टर कम्युनिकेशंस एंड PR हूँ, मेरा क्या ताल्लुक, मतलब डिजिटल वालों को बुलाया ना. बिकॉज वी ऑल थॉट कि ब्लेम गेम होगा, तुमने ये नहीं किया, तुमने ये नहीं किया, ये नहीं किया. I'm telling you, this is real. I witnessed it myself. Dr. Ishrat walked into the room and he said, किसी की गलती नहीं है, मेरी गलती है. He actually said that. Dry run नहीं हुआ. उन्होंने कहा था dry run करें, हम लोगों ने नहीं किया था. So he didn't say तुम लोगों ने dry run नहीं किया. He said, you know what's a dry run, right? So he said, dry run नहीं हुआ. Tell me, how will you fix it? And believe you me, my IT department worked straight for 8 hours, well into midnight, and we had it rolling the next morning. It is the leadership that decides how we are going to move towards a solution-oriented approach from an approach that is entirely rooted in the blame game. One way of moving forward is moving away from the blame game. And I tell you what, I'm saying all this and it's not easy. It doesn't come easily. I have done this blame game and then forced myself to pull myself from that situation and move on to the solution-oriented approach. It's a learned behavior. It takes time, but believe me, the dividends are unbelievable. Thank you. Okay, now this poor guy is avoiding conflict. Will conflict go away? The conflicts will never go away. They need to be resolved. They need to be addressed. And you may not find a perfect solution, but you should be able to find a working solution. I am never looking for a perfect solution. I will never advise you to look for a perfect solution. Find out an operational perfect solution which can be completely out of the box. For example, removing two people who cannot work together. Because if you keep pushing them to do it, the organization is going to suffer. So sometimes you do out-of-box solutions to find, and so my favorite word is, what is an operational option to get out of this situation? And ladies and gentlemen, there's another thing that I want to always say. You see, we spend more time with our work colleagues than we do with our family if you subtract the sleep and the hygiene time. We actually spend more time here. You don't have to like them, but you must have a functional relationship. Operational solutions, functional relationship. Anybody who walks into my office or walks into the boss's office and say, I will not work with this person, in my books, is ticked as a negative force in the organization. Because there's no such thing that I won't work with this person. There's no such thing as that. You are a part of the organization, and it is upon you to work. And this is where you separate the personality you from the problem. वो आप ZABIST है और पीपल्स पार्टी के लोग हैं तो नहीं, मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल बता रही हूँ. कायरा साहब आपको याद है ना? कायरा साहब बहुत, मैं उनको पर्सनली जानती हूँ बहुत. आई हैव अ लॉट ऑफ रिस्पेक्ट फॉर द मैन. ही इज़ अ डेमोक्रेट. तो एक ज़माने में आपको याद है एक मौलाना साहब आए थे, उन्होंने धरना किया था. क्या नाम था उनका? ताहिरुल कादरी साहब. नाउ दिस इज इंटरेस्टिंग. ताहिरुल कादरी साहब ने वो एक एयर कंडीशनड कंटेनर में बैठे हुए थे और उन्होंने धरना किया था और वो पीपल्स पार्टी को और बहुत बात कर रहे थे. एक दिन पहले कायरा वाज ऑन द टेलीविजन मिमिकिंग ताहिरुल कादरी, वो उसकी नकलें उतार रहे थे ना. दिस इज व्हाट इज दिस. नेक्स्ट डे द पार्टी पॉलिसी चेंजेस. ही गोज टू द कंटेनर और वो सीने पे सर रखा हुआ था उसने ताहिरुल कादरी के. एंड यू नो ही, आई गिव हिम अ लॉट ऑफ क्रेडिट. He separated the person from the party. The people who have the ability to do that are very, very good operators. We need good operators. It is now उनका वो mimicking personal थी, ना ये मिलना personal था. तो आप जिस इदारे के साथ काम करते हैं वो आप, you have nothing to do with it. You're a part of a larger ecosystem. And that ecosystem tells you what to do or what not to do. Anyways, and then tired of everyone's feelings. That's poor me. So somebody who hates the organization, have you ever realized कि वो दिन में कितनी conflict resolution करता है? वो कितनी both sides of the story सुनता है? और फिर वो कितनी tough decision calls लेता है? So again, what seems to be critical and the most important thing on the face of earth for you is every day for the boss. Anyways, so I thought I'll just take, okay. So why conflict resolution in the workplace is important? Do you think it is important to have conflict resolution? It is critically important because otherwise the conflict is going to draw you down. So because unresolved issues of interpersonal tension and conflicts can create emotional stress for employees, politicize the workplace, and divert attention from the organization's mission. We are one. We can't be us and they. So if the organization has become an us and they, then growth is impeded. So the biggest challenge for the top management is to create what I call an us culture. We are in it together. We grow together, we succeed together, and if we both succeed, we succeed twice. If that is disseminated, I think it would just help. And I also firmly believe that a leadership has a great role to play in that. In fact, a critical role to play in that. All statistics tell us people don't leave organizations, they leave toxic bosses. I think यहाँ पे एक और बात बहुत कहने का दिल चाह रहा है, because I'm also a boss. So, you know, something happened. जो हमारी जॉब इन्वायरमेंट में थी ना, उसमें वो एक जनरेशन थी, ये गोरे जो है ना, हर जनरेशन को एक नाम दे देते, तो एक बेबी बूमर्स थी, फिर मिलेनियल्स थे, फिर अभी जी है. हाँ, so what is this? Something that has happened to the work environment, and that is कि जो ये baby boomers वाली generation थी, जो शायद it was probably us, they are leaving, they are now being marginalized from the workforce at a pace which is unprecedented. कोई 20-25 हज़ार लोग रोज ये जॉब मार्केट छोड़ रहे हैं, and they are being replaced by millennials. तुम लोग millennials हो? Zio, तुम हमसे भी आगे हो. But it's being right now being replaced by millennials, and then they will be replaced by this Z generation. A thing common in this generation is that stability and continuity is not their problem. They do not want permanent jobs, they prefer freelancing. They do not want bosses, they want mentors, and they want somebody who is going to help them move on. So I think we need to revisit the workplace. It is already being done in the West. Hierarchies are being removed. Most work, you know, this whole paradigm of having glass doors, open door policy, the CEO sitting in the cafe is all a part of that. Because the whole concept of unapproachability is obsolete. You need to be very, very approachable. The student wants the faculty, perhaps even the rector, to be approachable 24/7. And when I say 24/7, I mean 24/7. This WhatsApp drama, whatever, I will get a message at 11 o'clock. But that's the new workplace. We need to find balance. And this is, by the way, also creating conflicts, because it is disturbing the work-life balance. Types of, interdependent, task-based conflicts. You can't work in silos. You will not work in compartments. You have to work together. So one aspect is the ability to realize this. I am marketing. No, you're not marketing. You are a part of a larger ecosystem, and you need to work others for the marketing to succeed. So I think those are conversations that we need to have all the time. So an accountant can't do their job without all the numbers. If an employee is constantly late with their reports, it affects the accountant's ability to finish up and make deadlines. We are living in an era of what I call supply chain work. Supply chain सिर्फ goods का नहीं है. यहाँ कोई supply chain की faculty होगी. Supply chain सिर्फ goods में नहीं है इस वक्त. सबसे बड़ा critical supply chain work environment का है. एक organization, एक कंपोनेंट दूसरे कंपोनेंट को फीड करता है. तो अभी चाइना में जो प्रेसिडेंट जी हैं, कैटेगोरिकली सेड इट्स नॉट अबाउट डीकपलिंग, इट इज़ अबाउट डी-रिस्किंग. दैट इज़ ऑल्सो वेरी ट्रू फॉर वर्क एनवायरमेंट्स. यू कांट डीकपल, यू कैन डी-रिस्क. दूसरा का काम आपको कितना इम्पैक्ट करेगा, लेकिन करेगा तो. So you need to work in collaboration. So we live in a world of de-risking. You bring down the risk, but you can't decouple. Leadership conflicts. Now also, may I please have some water? You also, नहीं आप बैठिए please. हाँ, थोड़ा सा पानी दीजिएगा, शुक्रिया. So leadership styles are critically important. It's good to get to know your leader. Some leaders are email leaders, other leaders are WhatsApp leaders, other leaders are come and talk to me, other leaders are give me the entire picture. So if I'm approached by a conflict, I will say, please send it to me in writing. And I tell you what, when they write, they rationalize their own feelings. You know, they are able to subtract the hype from the तो मेरे ये ज़ाती एक्सपीरियंस है और बहुत सारी स्टैट्स हमें ये बताती हैं कि आस्क फॉर रिटन कंप्लेंट्स एंड आस्क फॉर रिटन ग्रीवेंसेस. इसी तरह मुझे नहीं पता, हम सब आजकल एक एनवायरनमेंट में रहते हैं जहाँ हम सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट और पावर हरासमेंट की कंप्लेंट्स सुनते हैं. When a girl comes to my office and complains, and I was chair harassment committee for 3 years, and when a girl comes to me or a boy comes to me and complains about harassment, and this I want to speak to the students, I will listen to them. I will not listen to them. But at the same time, I will ask them to put it in the writing. And then in that also I create a trajectory. I say, if you want me to submit it, fine. If you just want to submit it to me, then also it's fine. Because I don't want to close the doors on them. You can't close a door on. Some girls are not comfortable कि ये कहीं और जाएगी. But I still want them to write it and give it to me. Because there has to be an element of responsibility and seriousness when you complain. When we come to complaining, we lose out on the whole paradigm of responsibility. It is so easy to blame. It is so easy to build up a small thing into something big. So it's good for an organizational culture to have it in writing. Tell me when I have to stop, and I will. So leadership styles, work style conflict. Some people just have different ways of working. Attune yourself to the other person's working, but you have to have a certain SOPs which are bare minimums. At every organization, there has to be a bare minimum of what needs to be done. Those need to be followed. Otherwise, ecosystem organization ka kharab ho jayega. And discrimination. I mean, fairness and equity will keep your organization conflict-free. And this is good conflict. This is creative idea conflict. We want to do this way, and we want to do this that way. But we both want to get the best. So we both want to get there. We may have a different way of getting there. So cognitive conflicts, conflicts which are about ideas, are amazing conflicts. I'm going to show you a video if you're quiet. Thank you. That's okay, that's students. So if there are two individuals who are disagreeing on a project idea, they should talk to each other and cooperatively decide on one idea or the other. If your project meetings are quiet meetings with zero inputs or no inputs, and you're just looking at the boss or the person who's heading the project to tell you what to do, you're having a terrible meeting. If you do not have excited people sitting on the table, coming with ideas to tell you how to do this better or how to do it differently, you have a bad team. So conflict is very good. It's an engine of human growth. It is conflict behavior. That is how that you tune to civility. I mean, this perfectly, I mean, you can say the worst thing in the world in the nicest way, and when you leave, the other person realizes what you've said. Yeah, so this is your ability. Words are magic. They're actually magic. Learn to use them to your advantage. So this is the creative idea. We learn and grow through competition when handled properly. Competition is good. We would still be living in the caves if there was not a competition for cooperative housing societies. That's a joke. Anyway, so that's what I mean. You need to have competition. Competition is very good, but so is the lubricant of civility when you have conflict. So SOPs, red lines, boundaries. You can disagree. You can agree to disagree, but you disagree within the norms of civility. That's critically. अगर civility का culture है आपकी organization में, आपके campus पे, आपके grounds पे, अगर civility का culture है कि एक चीज़ जो है आप नहीं कर सकते, आप हाथ नहीं हटा सकते, आप French use नहीं कर सकते. Those are red lines that need to be drawn. Those are boundaries that you need to draw If you have those, conflict is just fine. So essentially it boils down to conflict behavior. So I'm going to skip this because the group is really large. So if I had it just with the faculty, I would do it. I'm just going to quickly come to this. Do not fear conflict. हम में से बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो conflict से खौफज़दा हैं. हमारे यहाँ बच्चे बड़े ऐसे घरों में होते हैं जहाँ जवाब देने की, सवाल उठाने की इजाज़त कम होती है. हम ऐसे घरों में बड़े होते हैं जहाँ हमने अपनी वालिद की गलत बात पर, जो आपको भी पता है वो गलत कह रहे हैं, माँ को भी पता है वो गलत कह रही हैं, लेकिन बच्चों को खामोश होते देखा है. ये माहौल बच्चे इंटरनलाइज करते हैं. और जब हम ये माहौल इंटरनलाइज करते हैं, और सच बोलिएगा, मुझसे नहीं अपने आप से, जब आप ये माहौल इंटरनलाइज करते हैं तो फिर आप कॉन्फ्लिक्ट अवॉइडेंस इंटरनलाइज कर लेते हैं. आप कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से भागते हैं. तो सबसे पहले तो मुझे अपने आप का अहाता करना है. मुझे ये सोचना है कि मेरी ब्रिंगिंग अप कैसी हुई है. क्या मैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को कन्फ्रंट करती हूँ, उसका हल ढूंढता हूँ, या मैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से डर के भाग जाता हूँ, उसे अवॉइड करता हूँ. लेकिन वो कहीं जाता नहीं है, वो आपके अंदर रहता है, आपको तंग करता रहता है. Experts have found that most effective teams are those in which members feel safe enough to disagree with one another. A culture where dissent is allowed. I mean, any civilized society, any civilized organization, any civilized entity values dissent. Dissent is the way forward, but it's also the beginning of a conflict if not handled rightly. So it's innovation, it's diversity of thought, it's better decision making. So there is a small exercise because the group is really big. I'm just going to put it up on the board. And this is my favorite thing that I do on conflict. By the way, I'm passionate about it because my PhD is in conflict and I've been doing this for several years now. I used to do interstate conflicts and I don't know where I just jumped into the corporate conflict paradigm. So I kind of love this exercise. It's called Know Your Hot Buttons. And I also call it the remote control construct. All of you are familiar with the remote control? Yes? How many of you have your remote control in your own hand and how many of you have given it to somebody else? Yeah, think about it. So somebody says, Huma is a bad speaker. I was like, cut out. I know I'm good. Sorry for that arrogance. But if somebody says, I don't know, somebody says something about this is, Huma is arrogant, or वो चले इसमें भी मैं आपको एक शनाज मुझे इजाज़त दीजिएगा अभी मैं चुप हो जाऊँ बच्चे बैठे मुझे मज़ा आ रहा है बात करने में. So I used to work on PTV, right? So I was young, I was just graduated, I was a lecturer and was offered a talk show. They said, I have talk show career. So I was like on top of the moon, you know. And my show was being aired on PTV Global. So मुझे तो लगता था कि, you know, that I had that high. So I was invited by PTV to travel to Islamabad for election coverage. And अच्छा है आपको हर कोई पहचानता है नया बड़ा मज़ा आता है अभी हम छुप जाते तो उससे अच्छा लगता था. So there was a group who knew me and I knew them. And they said, oh आप आजकल TV कर रही है ना. तो मैंने कहा जी मैं आजकल TV कर रही हूँ. I thought कभी तारीफ करेंगे ना. They said हाँ थोड़ी शक्ल अच्छी होती है ना तो शो मिल ही जाते हैं. I was like, how can you say this to me? Why? And this is because when I had declined being the host of morning shows. शुरू में जब मैं गई टीवी पे तो मुझे हर वक्त मॉर्निंग शो कहते थे तो मैं उनसे कहती थी कि नहीं मैं हार्डकोर पॉलिटिकल शोज करूंगी मैं फॉरेन पॉलिसी शोज करूंगी एंड फाइनली दे गेव मी अ फॉरेन पॉलिसी हार्डकोर बिटवीन द लाइंस एक शो था वो जो मैं करती थी. खैर वो मैंने अपना असाइनमेंट पूरा किया. आई जस्ट साइंड अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट विद पीटीवी. आई केम बैक वॉकड इनटू माय जो उस वक्त हेड थी उनके ऑफिस में. समबडी ऑफ यू मे नो हर नेम वाज रुखसाना लोटिया. मैं उनके ऑफिस में गई और मैंने कहा मैंने बिल्कुल कल से काम नहीं करना. मैंने कहा शी इज़ लाइक अच्छा क्या हुआ बताओ मत करना. And I like the way she handled me. She said मत करना कोई बात नहीं, that's okay. And she said अच्छा हुआ क्या. तो मैंने कहा कि देखो मैं PhD में enrolled हूँ और आई एम अ सीरियस पर्सन. मुझे ये गुमान था कि मैं सीरियस काम करना चाहती हूँ और मैंने PTV इसलिए ज्वाइन किया था कि मैं सीरियस शोज़ करूँगी. बट ये लोग थे, उनको मैंने नाम बता दिया, आपको नहीं बता सकती. और उन्होंने मुझे ये कहा है कि इसलिए मुझे शो मिल गया और मुझे ये टैग नहीं चाहिए और मैं कल से नहीं आऊँगी. ब्रेड एंड बटर तो नौकरी तो थी, PTV तो साइड किक था. तो उसने बहुत गहरा सा सांस लिया. मुझसे कहने लगी अच्छा तुम्हारी मर्ज़ी है, वैसे तुम्हारा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट आ गया है, वैसे हम मीरा से तो शो नहीं करा सकते ना. You know, it literally brought me down. But my hot button was pressed. I had allowed these people to, by this comment, actually give up a career that has been a part of who I am for 25 years. So that's what reactions do to you. And this is what this exercise is all about. So list the last 3 times you felt someone pressed your hot buttons. What was the subject discussed? Who pushed your buttons? Why did you feel manipulated? And next time I will do this. So if today somebody comes and tells me that you're a bad teacher, it's going to hit me, but I will not react. Because I'd like to think that I've been there and I've done it and I know I'm a good teacher. Same is true for all of you. When you know something about yourself, how can you allow somebody to pass a comment about you and allow you to bother you even for 2 seconds? So this is the whole hot button exercise. The people who are sitting at the back, you're younger. You probably feel this all the time. People say this to make you, to hurt you. They have found that vulnerability in you. वो ये कहते हैं और जब आप बिल्कुल उसी तरह रिएक्ट करते हैं जिस तरह वो चाह रहे हैं कि आप रिएक्ट करें, तो फिर तो आपका रिमोट कंट्रोल उनके हाथ में है. उन्होंने आपका हॉट बटन दबाया और आपने बिल्कुल ऐसे रिएक्ट किया जैसे वो चाहते थे कि आप रिएक्ट करें. बिल्कुल इसी तरह जिस तरह मैंने रिएक्ट किया. You know, because that was my weak point. कि अच्छा मैं तो इसलिए आई हूँ कि मुझे पढ़ना लिखना आता है, मुझे बात करनी आती है. And I'm not here because I'm a good-looking woman. I'm here because I love being a good-looking woman. Thank you, but essentially that's not why I'm here. So this is something, again, you groom and you train yourself to do. This is an exercise. I leave it here with you. You may use it in your classrooms. It's actually a very interesting thing. I invite students to come and talk about. We do a course in personal effectiveness. I run it myself. And I ask students to, I distribute this and I ask them to write about when it has happened to them, and they come and talk about it. And we hear, you'll be surprised, we hear such beautiful stories. I mean, it's very interesting. I urge you to do it, and I share it wherever I go when I do this. So out of control emotions can paralyze cognitive functions. Cognition is the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experiences, and senses. So when you lose self-control, when you allow others to press your hot buttons, this is what you do to yourself. Conflict is very, very destructive for your own self. Where possible, conduct yourself with impartiality. Try to maintain emotional distance. Do you know how to diffuse tension? That's something else. But essentially, do this exercise to find out कि मेरा trigger क्या है, मेरा hot button क्या है. जब आपको खुद पता होगा ना कि आपका, मुझे भी नहीं पता था मेरा hot button क्या है, ये मेरा trigger है. But when you know what's your trigger, what's your hot button, then you're so much more in control of who you are. And then, of course, conflict is energy. It's positive energy if utilized properly. We need to manage that energy, encourage creativity and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I've run out my time. I'm going to stop here, and I'll take questions. I love to take questions. Thank you so much. जनाब, कोई सवाल नहीं है. I'd love to be, I think I'm provocative enough. So the students at the back, can anybody talk about their hot button? किसी का कोई hot button नहीं है यहाँ पे? Really? Okay, you know, Dr. Shahazudin, Madam Shahazudin just right? That it is so public. The ability to talk about it publicly also gives you a lot of strength. And I think today is a day of personal stories. So I'm going to tell you another very personal story. My third child is physically challenged. It took me 20 years to tell people. In my inner circle, people knew. But it took me a very long time to come out and talk about it. And when I started talking about it, you have no idea how many people have approached me to help them with a similar situation. Today, my child lives independently in Toronto and has done her undergrad from York University. But coming to this point and talking about me, it has taken a very long time. But it has brought me inner peace. And what I've done right now is that I've become vulnerable in front of you. Conflict resolution is about bearing your vulnerability to let the other person understand why are you behaving in a certain fashion. So I'll leave you with that thought. If you have, okay, we have a custard.
How do you deal with disrespect from someone who is superior to you in a post, and you know that you have confusion in terms of how to, obviously when your emotions are there, you suppress your reason element, right, rational element. So how do you exactly deal with that if it comes to a point where someone is disrespecting you?
I'm so glad you brought it up. Yeah. I'm so glad because there's the one aspect that I had not touched. First of all, there's nobody in the world who can disrespect you unless you decide that you will be disrespected. I'm going to categorically tell you that. But when we talk in the constructive conflict, so supposedly I and your director Auric has a conflict here right now. And we fling disrespect at each other. Who are all of you? You are conflict audience. And you're going to give a verdict. And that verdict is कि disrespect, बदतमीजी किसने की? आप verdict देंगे, अगर आप मेरे भी दोस्त हैं, आप बाहर जाके कहेंगे यार ज़्यादती डॉक्टर बकाई की थी. So remember, having self-control during conflict is critically important. If you are able to handle disrespect dished out by someone gracefully, you walk out a victor, and he is the person who has the verdict of people against him. Remember that. And this is going to give you so much strength, because this has given me strength. ऐसा नहीं होता यार 35 साल काम किया तो आपके ख्याल में फनकार नहीं मिले, बहुत फनकार मिले. And they said things what they said things. But it's about handling it. And it's also having this confidence that this is who I am. And this is who you are. Because you don't show your character and your upbringing more in two things. I mean, you, ये हज़रत मौला अली का भी कौल है कि आप दो चीज़ों में अपना किरदार सबको बताते हैं. एक, आप किस तौर बिहेव करते हैं जब आप पोजीशन ऑफ पावर में होते हैं, उस वक्त आपका किरदार पता चलता है. और दूसरा किरदार आपको पता चलता है कि आपको किस बात पर हंसी आती है, आपके लिए तमस्खर आने वाली बात क्या है. तो अगर कोई आदमी की टांग छोटी है और वो गिर जाता है और आपको ये बात हंसने काबिल लगती है, तो डिसरिस्पेक्ट उसकी थोड़ी ना है, आपकी है.
अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब,
थैंक यू.
बहुत बेसिक क्वेश्चन है. डू यू थिंक इज देयर एनी डिफरेंस बिटवीन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट एंड डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन?
Actually, difference of opinion is amazing. But if difference of opinion turns to a level where you bring in your prestige and your ego, it becomes a conflict. Difference of opinion is great. It is a way forward. It is an engine of human growth. But if difference of opinion means only my way or the highway, and I'm not listening and I'm listening to attack, then it does not remain a difference of opinion. You know this famous sentence that you all must have heard? I agree. Sorry, I have it here. I agree to disagree with you, but I will die to defend for your right to disagree. So that's what makes a civilized society. Yeah, go ahead. Good, finally from a student. I'm so happy. Walaikum assalam.
I had a question since we're talking about conflict behavior. So the current global situation which we're in, where conflict is neither resolved nor that is addressed internationally. So what do you think as an individual or as a student leader, or as just a general student, our behavior or our conflict behavior should be towards this issue, and how would you want the children's or the students to behave in such global
I would want
situation?
you to have an informed response, and not the response of a herd. You're educated people. You are 0.02% of this country. You're one of the most privileged elite who's been able to make it to the university. Please make informed choices and make informed decisions, and may have informed responses. We are all worried about what's happening in Palestine and Gaza. How many of you have read the history of the conflict? I'm very impressed. Thank you. I'm really impressed. So it's about having an informed response. You know, the minute you decide, in whatever position that you are, that I am going to take sides after getting to know more, you will immediately have an objective response to the situation. That's maturity of conduct. That's maturity of response. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam, ijazat hai?
I'm actually, thank you so much. इतने स्टूडेंट्स को मुझे अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी में बुलाने के लिए बहुत रिश्वत देनी पड़ती है, नंबरों की रिश्वत, अटेंडेंस की रिश्वत. आई डोंट नो अगर आप लोगों ने ये रिश्वत कभी खाई है कि नहीं, बट थैंक यू सो मच फॉर बीइंग हियर.
Student, please stay on your seats.
Okay, guys, we have one very interesting video. Would you like to see it? Yes.
Play kar do. Thank you so much, Dr. Huma Bakai, for sharing your knowledge, experience, and expertise with us. Your presence and expertise has made this event truly remarkable. Before moving forward to the closing remarks from Madam President, I would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Fizza Batul from the Faculty of Social Sciences to please share your insight.
So I stand here with a profound sense of gratitude from the Department of Social Sciences to ask me to share the overview or review of this speech. Perhaps it's a bit too heavy a task for an early career academic like me, because Dr. Huma has already graced us with her insightful observation of how complicated conflict resolution is and how difficult it is to transform conflict into an opportunity. And after me and Madam President is to speak, so I'm in a very difficult position here, and I am a very selfish learner, and I believe that when you're in the presence of senior scholars, it's always good to be a listener. So I won't speak a lot here. I have just a few points to make. As Dr. Huma was just saying, conflict resolution involves humans. It's a practical thing. And all humans come with their own complexities, their own burdens. So it's a job of someone who understands the intricacy, who understands the delicacies of the problems, and who do not turn a problem into something personal, who can actually transform a conflict into something positive. I am a scholar of international relations, so most of the time the examples I have in mind are from conflicts happening at global scale. But you can learn lessons from these conflicts and apply it in organizational setting, in psychology, and in all other domains of social sciences, because everything obviously is interconnected. For instance, since I work in Afghanistan, so when Dr. Huma was saying, one incident just came in my mind. One issue when we try and resolve a conflict is that we never own that conflict. And when the Afghanistan conflict was going on, it was a transformatory phase for Afghanistan, because when NATO forces entered, and all of you already know this, they have a very clear objective that they want to remove terrorist forces from Afghanistan, and they achieved that objective quite early. And then they decided that they want to use this conflict as an opportunity to transform Afghan society and to build nation there. But this nation building objective, it was very down in our priority list. And since we have a lot of priority as a human, when we try and resolve a conflict, we also try and win the conflict as well. And that's not the right approach when you try and resolve a conflict. When you become a party to the conflict, you won't be able to resolve it. So this is one issue that we observed in case of Afghanistan, and we observe it in case of our organizations, when people who are supposed to resolve conflict become a party to it. This is a very interesting, actually, Nick William was the head of, and the operational head of NATO forces in Afghanistan, and he shared this story, so I'll just recall it, and I'll just share it. And it actually is about the language and the offers we make when we try and resolve conflict. Because when two peoples are in conflict, they have some very concrete issues, and the offers we make are usually very abstract. And this result in a situation when they are not willing to give up something concrete in return for something very abstract. And the example again is from international relations, but try and apply it on the organizational structure and organizational discussion we have. So Nick William was there as the head of the operation, and he was invited by an Afghan who was at that time in the higher education department, and he was asked to have a dinner with that person. And when he was traveling with the driver, he came across a building which was very huge building. So he asked the driver what that building is. And the driver replied that it's a food factory that provides bread to the people. And so Nick was quite impressed, and he asked who built it. And since food is believed to be a domestic issue, he was expecting name of some Amir, some Khan. The driver replied, Russians built it. And Nick was silent for a minute. And the driver then asked, who are you going to build? And Nick replied, we are going to build the capacity of Afghans to govern themselves. And the driver replied, but sir, can we really eat capacity? So this is the issue, because the language, the offers we make are so abstract that it can't resolve a conflict, and it can't transform the conflict. So this is it. Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is it. It was going to end. So thank you again for being here, for your time and for your presence. Thank you.
Did you enjoy the talk? Very interesting. Absolutely brilliant. I think all of us have a lot of thoughts about what we heard today. And I want to thank Dr. Huma Bakai for taking the time to share her professional knowledge, her personal experiences, her institutional knowledge, her insights. And believe me, she is a woman of many, many different domains. An author, an analyst, an editor, a writer, an anchor person, an educationist. And you can see here that she's a sociologist and a social scientist, and she's an organizational behavior and individual behavior and workplace analyst as well. So I will not expand on what she said. I think that there's a lot of things that you said, Huma, that have actually been very, very close to the heart of everyone sitting here. Those in senior management positions have these sorts of issues to face with. So in a sense, you allowed us to reflect when you talked about your 3 hours, okay? And I think for the students who are sitting here, many times we don't think of the conflicts that you are part of, unconsciously, sometimes consciously, sometimes as observers, and many conflicts arise from the environment that you are in. हम जब कॉन्फ्लिक्ट की बात करते हैं तो ज़्यादातर लोग सोचते हैं कि दुनिया में मुल्कों में जो जंगें होती हैं वो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हैं, या सोसाइटी के अंदर इतनी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हो रही हैं, लेकिन जो पर्सनल इंटरेक्शन है, डेली इंटरेक्शन, उसके बारे में आज डॉक्टर हुमा ने बताया. वंडरफुल टॉक, वेरी इंस्पायरिंग, वेरी थॉट प्रोवोकिंग, and a very interesting area of social science study, since this has been sponsored by ORIC, organized by ORIC, but in partnership with the Social Science Department. I think it has turned out to be an extremely valuable session for us. And I think the more I think about it, Dr. Huma, the more I feel that many of the subjects that we teach in various fields in our universities, there are new areas that are developing. There are new areas of emotional intelligence that are appearing, organizational intelligence, workplace power harassment you've talked about. Workplace culture is not always defined in the textbooks the way I think you experience it. So I think there's a takeaway for our faculty, there's a takeaway for senior management for all of us, there's a very good takeaway for students. And we're delighted to have you here. We hope you'll again find the time to visit us and talk about your several other contributions in the world of international relations and political analysis, as well as organizational experiences. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Something to remember? जी जरूर तशरीफ लाएंगे तो परफेक्ट है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ना हो तो परेशानी नहीं है थैंक यू सो मच